Hey there, thanks for joining us. And on this episode of Do It, we're going to show you how to make these cool name magnets for your fridge. They're carved out of oak and they look pretty slick, so let's get to it. These pieces are going to be engraved and cut out on a CNC machine. So step one is to create a design. I'm not going to give the specifics on that process here, but I may post that software tutorial video in the future along with other project designs. So the first thing I knew I needed was a board that was going to fit all the names lengthwise, and that was roughly 22 inches. Here I'm cutting it to length with my crosscut sled on the table saw. So this project calls for 1/4 inch thick stock, which I don't have, and I don't have a bandsaw for resawing. So here I am taking care of the resawing at the table saw in 2 passes. I clean up the faces at the planer, and then I start with a very coarse grit sandpaper and end up sanding all the way to 220. Always check the thickness of your stock before setting up for CNC. Nothing beats a pair of digital calipers for that task. Now there are a lot of techniques out there in the CNC world for masking and not masking of your work. Personally, I prefer masking every time. I've had a lot of struggles in the past with paint seeping into the grain, and just no amount of sanding will get rid of it. And if you sand too much, you end up getting rid of the detail of your carve. This particular mask is from Avery, and it takes care of a lot of the bleed and does a really good job. So here's where I got a little ahead of myself. Anytime you have a thin covering of stock, whether it's a veneer or some kind of mask, you want to use a downcut spiral to do your profiling. The only thing I had in 1/8 of an inch diameter size was an upcut, and you can see just how badly it's pulling up that vinyl, which was a mistake on my part. The other issue was I wanted only the outline of the letters to be black and not the entire edge of the cutout. And had I thought of this before, I would have painted it right there on my table, but I went ahead and cut out the entire piece, or all the pieces. So as a precautionary measure, you see me taping all those edges off, which is a bit unnecessary. However, an ounce of precaution is worth a pound in correction. That's how it goes, right? So off camera, I tried to seal the connection between the mask and the wood with the slightest coat of lacquer before spray painting, and that helps control the bleed a great deal. Now here I am removing the vinyl mask, and some might argue that this is a huge pain. However, I hate sanding. I hate it a lot, and I would rather do this all day than sand off a whole lot of paint. So yeah, I would still recommend doing it this way. Just a light sanding is all it takes to touch it up and make it look real nice before removing it from the backing material. So I use an X-Acto knife to score, and in a lot of cases the tabs I create are small enough to just cut through completely until I can safely break out the piece without it damaging the actual piece that's kept. So after I clean up the edges with the sander, it was time to add the magnets. I wanted to make sure they didn't fall off, so instead of CA glue, I made sure to use some quick setting epoxy. And the magnets I got are rare earth magnets. I used to have trouble finding them until I found out that Harbor Freight carries exactly the kind I need, and they're very inexpensive. And here we are again at my brilliant paint station, where we put on the finishing touches, which is several coats of spray lacquer. I did a few more coats than usual, knowing how often magnets are picked up and moved around and handled. And there you have it, the finished product. Thanks for sticking around, guys, and if you like what you saw, feel free to subscribe. We'll have new content coming out all the time, and not just crafts and woodworking, 3D printing, gardening, home improvement, all kinds of things. So if you're the kind of person who likes to do things yourself, but wants to learn from someone else's experience and mistakes, you'll find plenty of both here. That's all for now. We'll see you next time.